Now I would like to invite two experts on aviation law and policy. First, Dr. Volkan Gunel, Head of International Law Program at Near East University from Cyprus, and right after, Dr. Pablo Mendes, Director of the International Institute of Air and Space Law of Leiden University in the Netherlands.
Dear Rector, colleagues and students, I'm very glad to be here and thankful to the organizers inviting me to this important seminar in Istanbul, where actually I am from. However, living and working abroad made me away from this beautiful city for the recent years. Today, I will attempt to present the legal and political challenges to the ongoing project of Istanbul new airport. We, the lawyers, actually deal with much more trouble, so maybe my session will be, for non-lawyers, maybe boring and maybe with some troublesome. Considering that there are many non-lawyers and students in the conference room, my speech will be on some basic principles of law and how law conducts in aviation matters in relation to politics as well. Although politics, economy and law are taken into consideration in the universities as a separated departments, they are highly connected to each other in reality. For instance, in a modern state, rule of law is an inevitable principle to govern the political relations between state and people. Moreover, it is indeed a consequence of the sustainable economy. So, in order to be a significant player in the global economy under open market rules, governments take political decisions on economy and make regulations or deregulations. There would be critiques and objections to the decisions or activities of the government in a well-functioning country, wherein I think the society will reach the optimist solution. So, thus I really care these seminars where different people, different approaches meet. Building mega projects such as Istanbul Canal Project, Istanbul Third Bridge, and the subject of this seminar, Istanbul Third Airport or new airport, if the Atatürk airport will be closed, will certainly change the socio-economic, cultural and demographic structure of the region, the north of Istanbul, as well as the environment in a broad sense. So it's a crucial political decision. But what about law? Law, accordingly, does not only consist of rules. It is not even concrete at all in complex issues. The interpretation actually makes the law materialized. Therefore, the worldview, political standing and moral values of the judges mean a lot in these cases. So all these issues, economically, politically, whatsoever, ultimately take us to one legal political concept. This is responsibility. So it might be either a legal liability or political responsibility. After this introduction, let's have a glance at Turkish aviation law and later on I will speak on the legal challenges and finally I will pass the floor to the distinguished air law professor Pablo Mendes de Leon, who will give more specific information on airline strategies and hub airports in relation to Istanbul new airport. General view of Turkish aviation law, since actually since its foundation in 1923, the legal system of Republic of Turkey has been modern and entirely based on Western legal principles. And recent governments of Turkey continued amending the existing codes and enacting new regulations in accordance with the requirements of a liberal economy, especially following the acquisition of candidate status to EU. And Turkish aviation law is in compliance with the most of the international conventions and protocols. And it also actively performs administrative duties internationally in European Civil Aviation Conference and Eurocontrol, and a strong candidate for the ICAO Council, I think, recently. And in every international conference, I hear many good comments about Turkish Airlines, Pegasus Airlines, or the new airport. This is what I proud actually as a person who lives abroad. And as a result, the aviation sector has flourished across the country. The principal regulatory bodies governing and administrating civil aviation and operations in Turkey are the General Directorate of Civil Aviation and the General Director of State Airports Enterprises. The General Directorate of State Airports Enterprises certainly has the main role in this third airport build, operate, transfer project. And in public law, we call build, operate, transfer as a form of project financing wherein a private entity, sometimes joint entities, receives a concession from the public authority to finance, design, construct, and operate a facility stated in a concession contract. What are the legal challenges? There are many legal challenges I think the joint company faces, but I will just mention some of them, and if there will be questions afterwards, I can answer. But the flight safety standards, contractual liability of the parties, and the environmental impact of the new airport under the applied rules of environmental law will be my main concern. For the environmental impact of airport construction, we actually assess we take in consideration environmental impact assess reports, which set forth that the project area composes of forests, lakes, and meadows. And as Mr. Gündüz mentioned, it's a huge area with 7,600 hectares. Actually, what I see from the project, the intention is to turn the North Istanbul into a growth engine is clearly declared as aerotropoli, if I'm not wrong. Comes from the merging the words aero, air, and tropoli, which is coming from metropoli. As the mega projects, Istanbul Canal or Third Bridge, including the third airport, will increase, of course, concretion and density. It is not wrong to say that Istanbul will be more frequently exposed to unfavorable weather conditions. However, this is the modern challenge of our modern world. How are we going to balance environmental issues with the development? Thus, airport buildings accordingly should be made very energy efficient or even energy negative if they incorporate renewable energy technologies. And the so-called greenhouse effect will definitely occur in airport projects, and airports and aviation generate greenhouse gases in three main ways, with, of course, firstly, flights are by far the largest source, and ground traffic is the second source, and airport buildings require electricity and heating. So such huge hub airport targeted projects need to be analyzed in depth by aviation lawyers too, and brought to the attention of the international community. But indeed, Istanbul is the locomotive of Turkish economy, fits into these environmental concerns, but I hope it finds the balance between the growth-based economy and sustainable environment. Contractual liability of the parties under legal sense. So as is known, when a government seeking to build a new airport must raise sufficient capital, so we have a liability undertaking regulation. My main concern here, based on the statements in the regulation, the third airport project will fall out of the liability undertaking from the treasury, because it will be done with the build, operate, transfer model. But the detail that is not mentioned much, but is how General Directorate of State Airport Enterprises, whose budget has sometimes increasingly bigger deficits. So this is one of my concerns to be answered, because the responsibility, the concept of responsibility is really important for us. Flight safety standards as the last but the most significant title, assessing the ongoing project in terms of flight safety standards. Annex 14, Volume 1, Airdrome Design and Operations to the Chicago Convention is an important document for us. But here there is something interesting, because it will not be in the city. So airport design and location, as you know, can have a large impact on aviation safety, and many airports are in congested areas where it is difficult to meet newer safety standards. For instance, aircraft noise may significantly impact the mental and physical health of people. And recently, the UK High Court of Justice upheld an environmental review of the expansion of London Stansted Airport. But considering the Atatürk Airport, building a new airport is an important advantage rather than renewing an old one. Some people, they also offer this, and since you cannot move the city out, to have a third airport is much more convenient. And there could be, according to some reports, there could be bird strikes. As is known, bird strike is an aviation term for a collision between a bird and aircraft, and the highest risk of a bird strike occurs during the takeoff or landing in the vicinity of airports. So according to some reports, the region of the near airport is on a route through where bird migration paths go. However, there are many alternative ways in order to prevent the strikes, and hope that the joint company will take the optimist way, comply with the environmental issues or with the environment itself. Meteorological condition. Some engineers think that the location of the near airport does not seem meteorologically suitable looking at the current data. And in the interviews, as far as I read from the internet, local community at various times, it has been expressed that the area mostly windy at storm strength and densely foggy. However, the technology develops each new day. So the third Istanbul Airport project is not today's project. It is a project of the following 50 years. And I think the operators will consider this in that way. So there are actually many other fields and issues concerning the subject. However, the time limit does not allow me to continue. So we will share the floor. So I think I'm going to take the questions after Pablo's speech. So I will pass the floor to Pablo. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon. Marhaba, burada olmaktan çok memnun. Madam President, I will do my speech in Dutch, if that's okay with you. No, Madam President, Madam Director, very honored to be here and to share some thoughts with you on the development of your new airport. I also want to say hello to my dear friend Lale from here, Mrs. Lale Kaplan, and Querido Luis, Amigo Luis, and all the other friends and colleagues whom I have met during these days. I also want to tell you before I start how deeply I am impressed, and I'm not saying this as a matter of politeness, because I'm not very polite, or as a matter of formality, how deeply I'm impressed by the dynamism in this country and the energy which flows from the minds of the people and the projects which you are starting, among which the new Istanbul Hub. Is this how it works? Yes. This is my first slide. And I have chosen it, I have put there a couple of lines in order to share with you a number of points which have of course been mentioned above, addressed before the previous speakers, but which have legal relevance. Firstly, the whole construction under local law, the concession. Aéroport de Paris has a 38% stake, I understand. I'm not going to address that point. But there is an explosive growth of air traffic. You know that, we know that, and that causes delays. One of the questions this afternoon pertains to passenger protection. How do we protect passengers against the damage caused by delay? There are rules on that, but that's not a subject of this seminar either. More focusing on that, on my speech and my talk this afternoon, is the fast-growing domestic and international market, especially in the Middle East on the first place, Europe on the second place. And those are very relevant factors for this afternoon, focusing again on transit traffic. By the way, the message which I want to share with you at the end of my speech is an extremely simple one, so stay a bit with me. You can listen or choose not to listen to what I say between now and the end of the speech, but I will try to lead up to that point. The new airport will open up in 2018, and it is expected that Atatürk Airport will be closed, but there's one relevant point which has legal relevance. Sabina Gökçen Airport will stay, and that is something I would like to discuss with you. There is also the point that tourism and trade with the European Union are substantial, and all of that has legal repercussions. Now, this is a long slide, but I'm not going through all the points because I know I have a very severe timekeeper in front of me, by the way, and apart from that, it is also quite dry to explain to you. The essence of the message of this slide is that under the Chicago Convention on International Civil Aviation, to which Turkey is a party, market access is addressed in a couple of articles, and those provisions say you must provide national treatment. National treatment in terms of charges, for instance. Don't make a difference in treatment between domestic carriers and international carriers. That is an important point. What did I hear the representative of the airport, of the current airport, Atatürk Airport, saying about the new airport? We are working together with Turkish Airlines. I would advise him, I would be very prudent in saying that, because there are a number of cases in the Netherlands, in Italy, in the United States, where CEOs of airlines and where CEOs of airports say, we are working together with our principal hub carrier. I always tell them, don't do that, because competition authorities, competitors, national authorities may come and say, what are you then discussing? Because you are supposed to apply the non-discrimination principle. So that's a bit dangerous. So, in other words, that is in essence the message of this slide and the message which I wanted to share with you on international rules on market access. I come to my next slide. Air Services Agreement. They provide the legal vehicle for market access. In short, they don't cause a lot of headaches, I would say, for transfer of traffic from the Atatürk airport to the new airport. This is because the Chicago Convention and those agreements say the states may designate the airport which international airlines must serve. But the question is, what kind of policy does the Turkish Civil Aviation Authority, and they are present in these rooms, I've spoken to them, will want to conduct? A restrictive one, protecting the market, or open skies? We don't know that yet. We know that under air services agreements, that's what I've seen, single designation, dual designation are more or less the rule in this country. Many of the bilaterals, maybe not all of them, but say Turkish Airlines or Turkish Airlines and another carrier may fly to other destination, and that on the basis of reciprocity. So that is a point which has to be discussed within this country. Other questions is slot allocation. In case there are not enough slots, in case there's congestion. Again, you must be very careful in giving priority to the local carrier, Turkish Airlines or Pegasus Airlines. I don't have a judgment on that. I don't know the facts in this country, but it is something you should keep in mind when you organize your traffic from and to an airport. Another thing is, can the current carriers serving Atatürk Airport take their slots to the new airport? That is something which depends on the rules which you apply. Are they domestic rules? Are they IATA rules? Or are they EU rules? And that, the last one, is an important one to which I will come back. Now, in the following paragraph, how will the huge Turkey-EU market look like? And this, ladies and gentlemen, for me, is really the principal point of this afternoon session. I know very well that the EU is not the most important market for Turkey, for Istanbul, Middle East. All these countries around Turkey, more on the east side of Turkey, are more important. We have seen the traffic figures before. Having said that, we also know that discussions are ongoing between the second largest partner of Turkey in terms of aviation, which is the European Union. And if you want to work with the European Union, you must know that the European Union applies a number of rules. It depends, of course, the basis on which you are working with the European Union. Lale and I discuss it. Will it be a horizontal agreement, only designation of EU air carriers? I will not go into that. It is a bit complicated within the short time frame which I have at my disposal. The most likely scenario is the European Common Aviation Area. We create one market, EU plus Turkey. That means that Turkish Airlines can freely fly from any airport in Turkey to any point in the EU, whether it be Nuremberg or Munich or Paris or London or Lyon or Lisbon, and vice versa, of course. So that will be a very dynamic market, I would say, a very interesting market for the two sides. But, as I said before, there are a number of caveats, a number of precautions to take into account. And this is actually the message which I wanted to lead you up to. If you want to freely export your air services, if you want to freely export your traffic to a market like the EU one, you import a number of rules and policies. And now I also come back to that second airport which you still have, which is Sabina Gökçen Airport, how are you going to divide the traffic between the new airport, the new Istanbul airport, and that airport? And that will be placed under the loop of the European Commission. They will carefully look at how you divide that traffic. Because maybe some carriers say, I prefer that Sabina, I know it's the name of one of your famous lady pilots. How are you going to divide that? Suppose a number of carriers will say, we want to stay there rather than going to the new one because it's much closer to downtown Istanbul. Can the airport decide that? Or are there other institutions who decide that? I tell you this because the European Union has a lot of experience in these matters. Milan, Paris, all have had their problems with the European Commission looking at how you do that. Is there no discrimination? Is there no preferential treatment between the operator of the airport and certain carriers? And that comes under scrutiny of those authorities. In other words, these choices must be carefully considered, I would say, both by the Turkish Airlines, by the Turkish airport operators, and by the Turkish Civil Aviation Authority, not in the last place. With that, Madam Chairman, I want to finish my very brief presentation. I hope it has provoked a number of questions, if not at least a couple of points for further reflection and research. And with that, I open the floor. Have been asked to open the floor for questions and answers. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for your presentation. Let me make a correction about my speech. I thought that we are in contact with Turkish Airlines, but not in Turkish Airlines, with all partners. For example, our friends from Çelebi, he is appointed as a coordinator of a ground handling company for this new project. We have meetings every week. I don't mean that we are working with only Turkish Airlines.
No, I understand. I may have misheard you then, but the reason why I say this is that not only you, but also in Amsterdam and in Washington and in New York, people tend to say that in public.
Well, how we cooperate with them to define peak hour figures. Yeah. We have to know about their flight schedules, fleet plan, but also, as you know, due to traffic capacity problem, there are a lot of airlines who expect new slots at new airports. We are in contact with them also.
May I ask you, will the new airport have a slot allocation mechanism from the very beginning?
Yes, but it is not coordinated by us. It will be under responsibility of Civil Aviation Authority.
Okay, thank you for that.
And the other issue, tariffs are fixed in our tender contracts. Therefore, it is same like Atatürk, except the passenger tax, which is 20 euro. Atatürk Airport, it is 15. It is also defined and fixed in our agreement.
Sorry, if you say passenger tax, that's different from an airport charge. So you're going to charge passengers for the use of the airport?
Yes, this is passenger tax, but all other tariffs, rentals, other service are fixed and regulated by the authority.
So you make a division, I guess, for passengers flying domestically and internationally?
Yes, for domestic it is 3 euro, for transfer it is 5 euro.
And in the current situation, I believe there is no tax.
There is tax, 15 euro.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. This is departure tax, yeah.
Ah, okay. Thank you for that clarification. More questions? Or for Dr. Gunel? Local law? I see someone there. 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 Oh, I thought that you were asking.
Yes, we have.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm asking you a question not about the new Istanbul airport, but about the perspective of aviation law professional. Why the aviation delay is strongly different from the other delays of the other, the transport modes. Like, for example, if you have a delay in 10 minutes in coach or in train, nobody cares, but in the aviation is totally different. Do you think that is fair for the airline and the aviation industry?
Well, that's a good point. The point is that I don't know about this country, but in the European Union there are no delay rules, not only for airlines, but also for train operators, for bus operators, and for operators of ships. So they tried to harmonize that a bit. If you are in your car, well, whom should be held liable? Then you must submit a claim maybe to your government and say you must build more roads in order to avoid congestion or to reduce congestion. So that will be extremely complicated because you are the operator of your car, so to say. And the only one whom you could, in my view, hold liable for the damages caused by your traffic jam, delay in your traffic jam, is your government. And the government will say, no, I am not liable because I'm immune from liability claims because I'm conducting my public policy, at least. This could be a defense from the government. So that is a bit how I would look at it. I've never seen in any country, not even in the US, which is such a clay-minded country, that car drivers can receive compensation from the state or the government in which they drive their cars because of delay. But in Europe, as I said, other operators are liable for delays under European regulations. That's what I meant to say as well. If you want to export your traffic to the EU, be aware that means import of a lot of rules, including liability rules, plus slot allocation rules, plus competition rules, plus a lot of enforcement of those rules. The Commission will see to it that you nicely divide traffic, should that be on your agenda. Yeah?
One last question and then we will have...
I have a question to Mr. Gunel.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Gunel.
Thank you. In your presentation, you just talked about BOT. So in our case, the BOT, and you described that BOT should also provide the credits or financial resources of the contractor to the country, outside of the country. But here, the finance has been provided from local sources with also the support of the government. So is it providing a conflict between the mentality of the BOT and the actual situation?
You mean the regulation? That because I
No. For the BOT, the finance should be provided by the contractors. Here, the government had to support them. So it should be a normal government tender, not BOT, for the project. What do you think about this?
Actually, I'm not an expert on this build and operation transfer models and regulation taking, but I just try to focus on the responsibility thing. Who will be responsible if the construction will have, let's say, not delays, but maybe if it is cancelled, and as is known, there is a guarantee for the DHMI. So I am just looking for the responsibility. So because I don't think that they can confront this debt actually. So the people will be responsible. The taxpayers will be responsible indirectly. So, but before the speech, actually, I asked Mr. Gündüz, please correct me on this issue because I'm living abroad and I'm not face-to-face meetings in Turkey, so it's better to have a clarification from Mr. Gündüz for the details, I guess.
Let's make a correction again. There are 6 banks. 3 of them has foreign shareholders. Main shareholders of the 3 banks are foreign, like as Garanti Bank, Spain, Denizbank, Russia, Finansbank, Greece. The main shareholders are. None of the bank all around the world, even government banks, cannot finance if the project is not feasible. At the beginning, you do a feasible You are showing them is the project feasible or not. You have a business model.
Sorry, cut.
Yeah.
Do you mean that this project is not feasible?
No. This project is feasible. Therefore, the bank groups decided to finance this project. Okay?
Okay.
No more time.
So thank you, Dr. Leon and Dr. Gunel, for your speeches. Now it's time to have a short break. Please enjoy your coffees and teas, and we hope to see you in 30 minutes. And please be back here on time to stick to agenda. Thank you.